Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of testing us in moments when we feel the weakest. Sometimes it feels like the world is against you, like everything you touch crumbles, and no matter how much effort you give, nothing seems to change. But let me tell you something powerful today. What you say to yourself in those moments matters more than anything else. For 5 days, I want you to challenge yourself. For 5 days, I want you to monitor the voice in your head and replace every doubt, every fear, and every negative word with words of faith, power, and possibility. You might think, Steve, can something so simple change my life? I'm here to tell you, yes, it can. Because the very first person who needs to believe in you is you. Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of testing us in moments when we feel the weakest. Sometimes the weight of everything we're going through feels unbearable. You wake up in the morning and before you even get out of bed, your mind starts throwing doubts at you. I'm tired. I can't do this. Why does it always happen to me? That's the voice most people hear when they start their day. And the truth is that voice alone can set the tone for the entire day. If you begin with defeat in your mouth, you'll carry defeat in your actions. But if you wake up and immediately decide to change that inner conversation, your entire life can begin to change. That's why I tell you, for just 5 days, monitor the voice in your head and choose to talk to yourself with strength, faith, and determination. See, the first person you hear from every day is not your husband, not your wife, not your boss, not your friends. It's you. Your own voice is the loudest and most influential sound in your life. And whether you realize it or not, you are either programming yourself for victory or programming yourself for failure. If the first words you speak in the morning are, I can't, then you already shut the door on what could have been. But if the first words out of your mouth are, I will win today, I will overcome, I am grateful to still be here, you have just planted seeds of power inside your spirit. The human mind is like fertile soil. Whatever words you plant, it's going to grow. You plant negativity, you reap limitation. You plant hope, you reap possibility. And I know some of you may be thinking, Steve, how can just saying words change my life? That sounds too simple. But let me tell you something I've learned. The mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated. If you keep saying you broke, you'll act broke, you'll carry yourself broke, you'll make decisions from a broke mindset, and you'll stay broke. But if you wake up and say, I am blessed, I am capable, I am more than enough, your actions start lining up with those words. You walk differently, you talk differently, you think differently. You start to see opportunities where you used to only see obstacles. Talking to yourself this way is not about ignoring reality, it's about shaping reality. Life responds to the words you speak. You declare strength even when you feel weak, because words have the power to pull strength out of you. You declare favor even when you're struggling, because words have the power to shift your mindset towards solutions instead of problems. For 5 days, I dare you to try. Don't complain. Don't curse yourself. Don't repeat your failures. Instead, remind yourself every morning and throughout the day, I am destined for something greater. I am built for this. I will come out on top. The problem with most people is not that they're not talented enough or smart enough, it's that they keep losing the battle in their own head. You can't expect to win in life if you're constantly losing the fight with yourself. The words you speak to yourself can either build the confidence to keep going or drain the energy out of your spirit before you even start. That's why changing the conversation inside your head is so powerful. Imagine how different your life would look if instead of tearing yourself down every day, you became your own biggest encourager. Imagine the energy you would carry if the first thing you told yourself in the morning was not, I can't, but I will. For just 5 days, give yourself that gift. 5 days of speaking life into yourself. 5 days of silencing the critic in your mind and turning up the volume on the champion inside you. 5 days of declaring victory before the day even starts. You'll be shocked how much lighter you'll feel, how much stronger you'll see the path in front of you. Ladies and gentlemen, when you open your eyes in the morning, you are given a brand new chance to direct how your day is going to go. That moment before you even touch your phone, before you check your emails, before you look at the world around you is one of the most powerful moments of your life. Because the first words you allow to enter your spirit will shape your thoughts, and your thoughts will shape your actions. If the first thing you tell yourself is, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, today's going to be hard, then you have already placed chains on your own potential before the sun even rises. But if instead you decide to say, today I'm going to push through, today I'm going to win, today I'm going to find something to be grateful for, then you set yourself up to handle the challenges of the day with a different kind of strength. You see, people underestimate the power of their own words. They believe their circumstances alone decide how their day will turn out, but in reality, it is the conversation inside your head that has the greatest influence. When you speak defeat, your body follows defeat. When you speak victory, your spirit rises up to meet it. It's not about ignoring the hard things in life. It's about deciding that those hard things will not control how you carry yourself. The voice you listen to first in the morning is a voice that drives you the entire day. And the truth is, it is almost always your own voice. Think about it. If you wake up and say, this day is already too much for me, you'll walk through every situation looking for proof that you're right. Every little problem will seem bigger. Every challenge will feel heavier, and every obstacle will look impossible. But if you wake up and declare, no matter what comes my way, I'm capable, I'm strong, and I'm blessed to see another day, your eyes will search for proof of that too. Suddenly, instead of focusing on what's wrong, you'll find reasons to keep moving forward. That's why controlling what you say to yourself in the morning is one of the most life-changing practices you could ever build. And here's what I've learned. Your day is a reflection of the mindset you choose at the start. Life will always throw unexpected problems at you. You might face stress, pressure, disappointment, even loss. But when your first words are filled with power instead of weakness, you give yourself the strength to endure those challenges without breaking. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you choose to respond. That response starts with the way you talk to yourself. I remember times when I had nothing, when I was broke, sleeping in my car, unsure how I was going to make it through. And the only thing I had in those moments was my own voice telling me, don't give up, Steve. Keep going. Something better's on the way. I had every reason to let fear and failure win, but I refused to let the first words of my day be words of defeat. That choice alone kept me moving until I could finally step into the blessings I was praying for. If I'd allowed negativity to dominate my mornings, I would have stayed stuck where I was. That's the truth for everybody listening to me. You are either lifting yourself up every morning or you are tearing yourself down, and you might not even realize it. So for 5 days, I challenge you to wake up and take control of the first voice you hear. Before the weight of the world hits you, before the noise of other people's opinions fill your mind, tell yourself, I will find a way, I will be grateful, I will stand strong today. Watch how that one decision will begin to shift everything around you. Watch how you'll notice opportunities you couldn't see before. Watch how your attitude will lift not only you, but the people around you. Ladies and gentlemen, the mind is one of the most powerful tools God has ever given us. And it doesn't always operate the way we think it does. The mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated. That's why if you keep saying you're broke, you'll begin to live broke, think broke, and act broke. If you say you're weak, Your body and your spirit will begin to believe it, and everything you do will reflect weakness. But the same principle works in the opposite direction. If you choose to tell yourself every day, I am capable, I am strong, I am destined for greatness, your mind accepts those words and begins to shape your actions to match them. You start walking with more confidence, you start making bolder decisions, and you begin to see opportunities where you once only saw obstacles. Most people spend their whole lives repeating negativity to themselves. They say things like, I'm not good enough. I'll never have enough. I'll always struggle. And then they wonder why their lives seem stuck. It's because the words they speak become the instructions their mind follows. Your words are like commands to your brain, and your brain is always listening. When you constantly repeat defeat, your brain believes you want to stay in defeat. When you constantly repeat possibility, your brain begins to look for ways to bring that possibility into your reality. That's why what you say to yourself matters more than what anybody else says about you. Other people's opinions don't shape your life nearly as much as your own words do. I've seen this principle work in my own life. There were times when I didn't have a dime to my name, times when I was sleeping in my car, times when it looked like I wasn't going to make it. If I had let those circumstances define me, if I had kept telling myself I was broke and hopeless, I would have stayed right there. But I refused to let my situation dictate my self-talk. Instead, I declared things that didn't line up with what I could see. I said, I will succeed. God has more for me. My life is not over. Even though my reality didn't look like it at the time, those words started to shift my mindset, and eventually my mindset shifted my circumstances. I'm standing here today as proof that your words can take you from nothing to something, from broken to blessed, from stuck to successful. The problem with so many people is that they think speaking positively is just pretending. They say, Steve, how can I say I'm strong when I feel weak? How can I say I'm blessed when I'm broke? And I tell them, you're not pretending, you're planting. Every word you speak is a seed. If you plant seeds of weakness, you'll harvest weakness. If you plant seeds of strength, you'll harvest strength. What you declare today is going to grow into what you live tomorrow. That's why you can't afford to spend your days speaking against yourself. It might seem small, it might seem silly, but it is one of the most powerful habits you can ever build. For 5 days, I want you to test this for yourself. Every time a negative thought tries to creep in, replace it with a declaration of strength and possibility. When your mind says, I can't do this, answer it with, I can and I will. When you feel like giving up, tell yourself, I am built to overcome this. When you look at your situation and it looks impossible, declare, my breakthrough is on the way. If you do this for just 5 days, you will feel a shift inside you. Your energy will change, your decisions will change, your perspective will change. You'll realize that the biggest limitation in your life was not your circumstances, but your own self-talk. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you of something powerful. Faith comes by hearing. What you hear consistently is what you begin to believe, and what you believe is what you eventually live out. If all you ever hear is negativity, criticism, and doubt, then that is exactly the atmosphere you're going to carry with you. You will begin to shrink your dreams to fit the limits of what you've heard. But when you start feeding your spirit with words of courage, possibility, and hope, something happens inside of you. Your faith begins to rise. And when faith rises, fear has no choice but to leave. This is why talking to yourself like a champion is so important, even when you don't feel like one. You can't wait until everything in your life lines up before you start speaking victory. You have to speak it first. If you only declare strength when you already feel strong, that's not faith. That's comfort. But when you say, I am strong in the middle of your weakness, when you say, I am blessed while standing in lack, when you say, I am favored, even when doors keep closing on you, that is when your words carry power. You are calling things that are not as though they were. And that is how breakthroughs are born. Because the truth is, words are not just sounds. They are seeds. Every declaration you make is planting something in your future. If you keep planting doubt, you'll keep reaping disappointment. If you keep planting hope, you'll reap new opportunity. Faith is not built by ignoring reality. It's built by reshaping reality with what you choose to hear and repeat. That's why I always say you got to be careful what voices you let speak into your life. If all you hear is gossip, criticism, and negativity, then you're starving your spirit of the faith it needs to fight through life's challenges. But when you speak to yourself with strength, when you tell yourself daily that you are chosen, that you are enough, that you are capable, then you're feeding your spirit the nourishment it needs to rise above fear. Fear cannot survive in the same space where faith is grown. I know some of you may be sitting here thinking, Steve, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand how tough my situation is. And you're right, I may not know the exact details of your storm, but I do know this. The size of your faith can outlast the size of your problem. And that faith begins with what you allow yourself to hear every single day. If you want to see change in your life, you've got to start by changing what you're saying. If you want more courage, you got to start declaring it. If you want more peace, you got to start speaking it. If you want more opportunity, you got to start believing in it enough to say it out loud. Think about how different your life would look if instead of repeating fear, you repeated faith. If instead of saying, I'm stuck, you said, I'm being prepared for something greater. If instead of saying, I'm not enough, you said, I've got everything I need to take the next step. Those words alone create an environment where miracles can happen. Because faith doesn't just come by chance, it comes by hearing. And the voice you hear most in your life is not your family, not your friends, not your co-workers, it's you. That's why what you say to yourself is the most critical factor in whether your faith grows or your fear takes over. So for 5 days, talk to yourself like you already have the victory. Speak it before you see it. Remind yourself every morning and every night that you are favored, you are chosen, and you are destined for more. Watch how your faith begins to rise, and watch how your circumstances begin to respond. Ladies and gentlemen, talking to yourself in the right way is not about pretending your problems don't exist. It's about reshaping your reality by the way you speak into it. Too many people think positive self-talk is about ignoring the truth, but it's not. Denial, it's direction. You are giving your mind, your spirit, and your future a set of instructions to follow. When you declare strength while you're in the middle of weakness, you're not lying to yourself. You're calling out the strength that's already inside of you. When you say you're blessed, even when your bank account doesn't agree, you're not pretending. You're aligning your words with the future you're working toward. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, and every single word you speak carries weight, either building yourself up or tearing yourself down, and the choice is yours. You have to understand that every time you open your mouth, you're planting a seed. If you keep saying, I'll never get out of this situation, I'm always broke, nothing ever works out for me, then that's the harvest you're preparing for your future. But when you declare this is temporary, I'm moving toward better, something greater is waiting for me, then you're planting hope, and hope has the power to grow into opportunity. People don't realize how many of their problems are rooted in their own words. They curse their own progress without even noticing it because they speak out of frustration instead of faith. The key is to remember that your words create atmosphere. They shift the way you feel, they shift the way you act, and eventually they shift the way life responds to you. If you walk around telling yourself you're exhausted, you'll feel more tired. If you walk around saying you're unlucky, you'll overlook every blessing in front of you. But if you walk into a challenge and say, I am more than enough to handle this, your energy changes, your posture changes, and you carry yourself in a way that attracts solutions instead of problems. That's the real power of reshaping reality through the way you talk to yourself. I've had moments in my life when reality didn't match the words I was speaking, but I kept declaring what I believed instead of what I saw. I can remember being at rock bottom, not knowing how I was going to make it. But I still told myself, God's got more for me. This is not the end of my story. My breakthrough is on the way. At the time, those words didn't line up with what my eyes could see, but they lined up with what my faith was holding on to. And because I kept speaking it, I kept moving toward it. If I had chosen to repeat only what was wrong in my life, I never would have stepped into what was right. That's why I tell people, don't ever underestimate the power of what comes out of your mouth. You may think it's just words, but those words are steering the direction of your life. Every declaration you make is either pushing you closer to your destiny or pulling you further away from it. When you talk to yourself, you're not just designing your reality, you're designing it. And if you want a better design, you've got to start speaking better words. So for 5 days, discipline yourself to reshape your world with your own voice. Every time you're tempted to complain, replace it with a declaration of gratitude. Every time you want to say, I can't, choose to say, I can, I will, I must. Every time you feel like your situation is permanent, remind yourself that nothing stays the same and better is on the way. If you do this, you'll start to notice that your words will create a new reality around you. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this for a moment. If you wouldn't let a stranger stand in front of you and tear you down, why do you allow yourself to do it every single day? Most people don't even realize that the harshest voice in their life isn't coming from other people, it's coming from themselves. They wake up and immediately start listing everything that's wrong with them. They look in the mirror and see flaws instead of potential. They step into opportunities already doubting if they belong there. And little by little, that constant self-criticism chips away at their confidence until they don't even try anymore. The saddest thing in the world is when a person becomes their own biggest enemy, not because they lack talent or ability, but because they kept believing the lies they told themselves. It's time to flip that script. You need to become your own encourager, your own motivator, your own biggest supporter. Life is already full of challenges, setbacks, and people who don't believe in you. The last thing you need is to join the crowd that's against you. You got to decide that even if no one else claps for you, you'll clap for yourself. Even if no one else believes you can do it, you'll declare over your own life, I can and I will. Because the truth is, nobody has more influence over you than you. Your words carry more weight than anyone else's. If you're tearing yourself down, nothing anybody says can lift you up. But if you're building yourself up, then no one else's negativity can bring you down. When you start talking to yourself with encouragement, something inside you shifts. You begin to see possibilities you used to overlook. You begin to carry yourself differently with a quiet confidence that says, I belong here, I deserve to win, I have something valuable to offer, and people notice that. Opportunities begin to open up because people are drawn to the energy you give off. You see, when you're always negative toward yourself, you radiate doubt. And people pick up on that, but when you're positive and affirming, You radiate confidence and people want to be around that. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. For many of us, negative self-talk has been a habit for years. We've gotten so used to criticizing ourselves that we don't even notice when we're doing it. But just because it's a habit doesn't mean it has to stay one. The same way you train yourself to speak negatively, you can retrain yourself to speak positively. It starts with catching yourself in those moments when you hear that inner voice say you're not good enough. Replace it immediately with, I am enough. When you feel yourself thinking, I always fail, answer with, I'm learning and getting stronger. When you want to say, I can't, push back and say, I will find a way. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. For 5 days, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Promise that no matter what happens, you won't be your own enemy. Promise that you'll speak to yourself with the same love, encouragement, and faith you would give to a friend. Because if you keep lifting yourself up for 5 days straight, you'll feel a change in your spirit. You'll notice your energy rising, your confidence growing, and your vision becoming clearer. You'll discover that the power to keep moving forward was always inside you. It just needed your voice to activate it.